All right, Cancer, it's your turn. I went super hard on Libra, the ENTPs. It was like definitely the longest video, but I had so much fun with that video. All right, so moving on to Cancers or the ENFJs. Cancer isn't trying to smother you, they're trying to keep everyone alive. Cancer doesn't overreact, they react early. I had to start with a couple funny quotes. All right, so my name is Heather, and this channel is called Underwater Panther. The work I do here sits at the intersection of astro-psychology, moral cognition, shadow integration, and cultural power dynamics. I run multiple long-form series exploring how different minds processes values, identity, authority, relationships, and meaning across astrology, psychology, generational dynamics, culture, and consciousness. All right, so we're talking about ranking of the 12 archetypes from the most masculine to the most feminine under pressure. So, before I show this ranking, I need to slow the room down for a moment. This is not a ranking of worth, morality, intelligence, or superiority. This is a ranking of which archetypes naturally lead with masculine function versus feminine function under pressure. When I say masculine, I mean structure, direction, boundaries, responsibility, consequence, and containment. When I say feminine, I mean integration, attunement, relational intelligence, meaning making, and emotional continuity. Every archetype carries both, but every archetype has a default lead function, especially when systems destabilize. And here's the critical point. When an archetype is forced to lead from its non native polarity, it doesn't become balanced. It becomes overextended, distorted, or resentful. So, as we move from most masculine leading to most feminine leading, we are not moving from the strongest to the weakest. We're moving from structure first minds to connection first minds, each carrying moral weight differently and each breaking differently when overloaded. So, with that clarification, let's look at what healthy versus distorted, masculine and feminine actually look like. So, I'm going to run through the list real quickly, the ranking list of the most masculine leading to the most feminine leading. I have certainly been studying this topic for over a decade now. And so it's from a lot of research and personal experiences. So, number one, we have Capricorn ISTJ due to Saturn containment and consequence. Number two, Aries or ESTP, Mars initiation and force of action. Number three, Aquarius or INTJ, structural ethics and systems direction. Number four, Leo or the ENFP, visible leadership and morale direction. Number five, Sagittarius or the ISTP, meaning direction and doctrine pressure. Number six, Virgo, the ESFJ, standardization and corrective containment. Number seven, Scorpio or the ENFP, power containment internally and control risk when split. Number eight, Gemini, the ENTJ, androgynous bridge, oscillates, can look masculine when detached and feminine when attuned. Then we have Taurus, the ESTJ, yin, stable but outwardly quiet, authority through consistency. Number 10, Libra, the ENTP, relational governance and harmony first outwardly. And number 11, Cancer, ENFJ, protective containment, but feminine leading via emotional safety. And last but not least, we have Pisces, the INFJ, dissolution, unity, and compassion first. All right, so I'm almost at the end of the list here. I've been hammering this very hard for the last few days. All right, so this is the key card I created many, many years ago. We're combining astrology with psychology. Psychologically, you have the hero, parent, child, and inferior. Astrologically, we have the ruler, exaltation, left field, and fall. So I will be breaking this down. And let's get started. So, Cancer, the protective feminine containment, the guardian of emotional safety. Why Cancer is ranked 11th. Care must come after truth, structure, and coherence, or it turns into fear. So Cancer does not appear early in the sequence because care without clarity becomes control. Before Cancer can do its work, reality must be shared through Gemini, shadow must be faced through Scorpio, systems must work through Virgo, meaning must exist through Sagittarius, morale must be alive through Leo, structure must hold through Capricorn, stability must exist with Taurus, and fairness must govern through Libra. Only then can Cancer enter and ask the question no other archetype is designed to carry. Who needs protection and from what? Cancer is not softness. Cancer is the emotional immune system of society. Civilizations do not collapse only from violence, invasion, or collapse of infrastructure. They collapse when people no longer feel safe to belong, when fear replaces trust, when attachment becomes dangerous, and when emotional safety disappears. That is Cancer's jurisdiction. So, core function, how Cancer is built. Cancer is a water sign dealing with the emotions and feelings, the water element, feminine leading and governed by the moon. Ruling planet is the moon, which orients it towards emotional attunement, memory, and presence rather than abstraction or speed. All right, so Cancer does not lead through ideology, strategic vision, or conceptual frameworks. It leads through sensing. Its intelligence is not theoretical, it is embodied. Cancer experiences reality through the nervous system first, registering safety or threat before language, logic, or interpretation enters the picture. Cancer's cognition is visceral. It feels danger before it can be named and recognizes vulnerability before it can be explained. Emotional shifts register the way physical pain does, immediately and without debate. This is why Cancer often reacts faster than others in moments of emotional stability. It is not impulsive, it is responding to information that bypasses conscious reasoning. Cancer does not wait for proof when attachment feels threatened. It responds to the signal itself. Under pressure, Cancer's role is singular and clear. Sense danger, protect attachment, preserve belonging, and maintain emotional safety so life can continue. Cancer does not reason first because reasoning takes time. It feels first and then acts to shelter. That shelter can be physical, emotional, relational, or cultural, but the impulse is the same. Reduce exposure, create containment, and prevent harm from spreading through the system. Cancer's governing question under stress is not philosophical or strategic. It is not asking, is this efficient or is this fair in theory? It is asking something far more immediate and consequential. Who will be hurt if this continues? If someone is at risk, Cancer moves. If attachment is threatened, Cancer fortifies. This is not sentimentally or emotional excess. It is survival intelligence encoded into the psyche. Moral load, what Cancer carries. I've been talking for 2 hours already. I need a drink. All right, so Cancer carries care-based morale weight. Its ethics are not abstract or ideological. They are protective. Cancer's moral compass is oriented towards vulnerability rather than principle. It evaluates situations based on exposure, dependency, and impact. Who is unprotected? Who lacks shelter? Who will bear the emotional or physical cost if this goes wrong? Cancer is especially attuned to harm that lands disproportionately on those who cannot defend themselves: the young, the dependent, the bonded, and the emotionally exposed. It is less concerned with equal treatment or more concerned with unequal consequences. From Cancer's perspective, morality is not about rules applied evenly. It is about protection applied where it is needed the most. Because of this, Cancer often absorbs emotional fear on behalf of others. It carries anxiety internally so the group can continue functioning. It worries so others don't have to. It holds vigilance in its body so systems do not freeze or fracture. This emotional labor is largely invisible and rarely acknowledged, which is why Cancer can become exhausted, overprotective, or resentful when its care is assumed rather than respected. Cancer's moral load is heavy because it is continuous. There is no off switch for sensing vulnerability. When integrated, this creates extraordinary guardianship. When uncontained, it leads to emotional overextension, fear based control, and burnout. Cancer's work is not to care less, but to learn where its responsibility ends so protection does not turn into self erasure. How Cancer resists and fails identity capture. Cancer resists identity capture through loyalty, emotional memory, attachment bonds, and kinship identity. It does not abandon its people easily. Cancer remembers who showed up, who protected who stayed during hardship, and who disappeared when things became difficult. This long emotional memory creates resilience against shallow ideological capture. Cancer is not easily swayed by abstract beliefs that require severing bonds or dismissing lived relational history. Its sense of self is rooted in who belongs, not what is trending. Cancer tracks relational history with precision. It remembers tone, timing, sacrifice, and presence. This makes it deeply resistant to narratives that demand emotional amnesia. Cancer will reject ideas no matter how popular or rationalized if they require betrayal of attachment bonds or denial of shared history. This is one of Cancer's greatest strengths. It anchors identity in continuity rather than novelty. However, Cancer has a critical vulnerability. Can be captured through fear saturation. When threat narratives dominate the environment, I totally just lost my spot. I'm sorry. There it is. Literally went up like 5 pages. When threat narratives dominate the environment, when belonging feels fragile, when safety feels scarce or conditional, Cancer's moral center shifts. Care slowly transforms into defense. Protection becomes aggressive. Attachment contracts into tribalism. The instinct is no longer how do I care for those who are vulnerable, but how do I keep my people safe at all costs? In this state, loyalty hardens. It becomes us versus them. Care turns into guilt, leverage. Emotional obligation replaces choice. Morality stops being a guide for discernment and becomes a shield for fear. Cancer does not seek domination, it seeks survival. But when fear governs perception, discernment collapses. The line between protection and control blurs. So, what collapses when safety disappears? When emotional safety collapses, Cancer is destabilized at its core. The losses Cancer feels most acutely are not abstract ideals or philosophical frameworks. They are the breakdown of family systems, community trust, emotional safety nets, and intergenerational continuity. Cancer relies on the idea that home, whether physical, relational, or cultural, is a place of refuge. When that assumption breaks, Cancer's entire nervous system reorganizes around vigilance. When home no longer feels safe emotionally or physically, Cancer becomes hypervigilant. It scans constantly for danger. Emotional identification with threat intensifies. Fear becomes the organizing principle of perception. Signals that would once be contextualized are now interpreted as imminent risk. This is not paranoia in the clinical sense. It is survival mode activated without relief. In this state, modern distortions emerge quickly. Identity becomes something to defend rather than people to protect. Morality is used to justify fear rather than reduce harm. Emotional manipulation may be framed as care. Pressure may be framed as love. Boundaries are tightened not because danger is present, but because danger is expected. Without safety, cancer clings. It holds tighter, watches closer, and intervenes sooner. The instinct to shelter becomes constant, leaving no room for autonomy or trust to breathe. So, split risk when protection becomes imprisonment. Cancer splits when fear replaces discernment. At this point, loyalty replaces truth. Care replaces consent. Protection becomes emotional capacity. The bond itself becomes the justification for control. Excuse me. I don't have any water. Where's my water at? Oh, I did bring water. Sorry, I've been talking for a couple hours already. I did like 9 hours of video yesterday. All right, so where was I? All right, so so at this point, loyalty replaces truth, care replaces consent, protection becomes emotional capacity. The bond itself becomes the justification for control. If you cared, you wouldn't leave. If you were loyal, you'd comply. If you're safe here, why do you need distance? This is not malicious, it is fear driven containment. Cancer does not want control, it wants everyone to survive. It wants harm to stop, loss to be prevented, and bonds to endure. But when fear governs behavior, shelter becomes a cage. Safety turns conditional. Belonging becomes obligation. This is cancer's deepest shadow. Not cruelty, but overprotection born of terror. And the only path out of this split is the restoration of safety with boundaries. When cancer learns that care does not require ownership and protection does not require captivity, its immense emotional intelligence can return to its rightful role, holding the hearth without locking the door. Masculine and feminine expression, how cancer feels to others. Cancer men often project a quiet, grounded protectiveness that doesn't announce itself loudly, but is felt immediately. Their presence carries emotional memory and loyalty rather than dominance. People around them tend to feel claimed in a stabilizing way, as if someone is watching the perimeter even when nothing is being said. There is an unspoken, you're safe here quality that comes from Cancer's deep attunement to vulnerability and threat. Their authority is not performative, it is relational. It comes from consistency, remembrance, and showing up when it matters. At their healthiest, Cancer men protect without needing control. They hold emotional continuity across time, remember who people are during hard moments, and offer steadiness rather than force. This makes them powerful anchors in families, friendships, and communities, especially during uncertainty or crisis. Under pressure, however, the same care can turn inward and passive. When their emotional labor is unrecognized or taken for granted, Cancer men often withdraw rather than confront. Instead of expressing anger directly, guilt may seep into the dynamic. Silence becomes a boundary. Distance replaces dialogue. Care remains present, but it is no longer freely offered. It becomes conditional, quietly resentful, or withheld. Culturally, many Cancer men are shamed early for tenderness. They are taught explicitly or implicitly that emotional attunement is weakness. that protection should look like stoicism rather than presence. As a result, care may go underground. They still feel deeply, but express it through withdrawal, quiet, endurance, or emotional retreat. This can leave others confused. The warmth is still there, but unreachable. All right, so now moving on to Cancer women. Cancer women often radiate a deeply regulating presence. They don't just offer care, they contain space. People feel emotionally softened around them, as if the nervous system has permission to exhale. Cancer women track emotional shifts instinctively, noticing subtle changes in tone, energy, and need before they are spoken. This makes them powerful builders of home, culture, and belonging, whether or not that home is literal. In health, Cancer women nurture without erasing themselves. Their care is responsive, not compulsive. They create safety while respecting autonomy. Their authority is maternal in the truest sense, not infantilizing, but protective of growth. Others feel supported without feeling owned. In shadow, emotional overfunctioning sets in. Because Cancer women are so skilled at sensing and meeting needs, others may begin to rely on them excessively. Care becomes expected rather than chosen. Emotional labor accumulates without reciprocity. Over time, this can turn into enmeshment, where boundaries blur, resentment builds, and the Cancer woman feels trapped by her own generosity. Many Cancer women are socialized to carry everyone else's emotions. They are praised for self sacrifice and shamed for prioritizing their own needs. As a result, they may continue giving long after it is healthy, confusing obligation with love. When exhaustion finally hits, it can feel shocking to others because the care seemed endless until it wasn't. I have certainly seen this in real life. Certainly, I worked with a Cancer woman who is my age, and she is just a doll. Cancers are so cute. I don't know what it is. They normally have, like, big eyes, and they're so sweet. They're so cute. Oh my gosh. Alright, so the shared core tension. The masculine and feminine expressions differ in form, but the underlying tension is the same for both Cancer men and women. Cancer exists to protect, but protection without boundaries suffocates. When care is offered without limits, it turns into control, guilt, or emotional debt. When boundaries are missing, safety collapses into obligation. Integrated Cancer learns that true protection does not mean absorbing everything. It means knowing where care ends and autonomy begins. At its highest expression, Cancer creates refugee without imprisonment. At its shadow, it holds too tightly and loses itself. Cancer's lesson is not to care less, but to care with structure. All right, so gosh, it's cold in here. The 4-point planetary and cognitive architecture. So this is the ego, broken down into 4 sections. Psychologically, of the hero, parent, child, and inferior. Astrologically, you have the ruler, exaltation, left field, and fall. So I'm going to break it down. Why Cancer feels safe until it suddenly suffocates. At its core, Cancer is governed by emotional attunement. Cancer does not experience reality primarily through abstraction, ideology, or systems. It experiences reality through felt safety, attachment bonds, and the continuous question of whether belonging is secure. Where other archetypes manage structure, truth, or meaning, Cancer manages emotional survival. Its intelligence is not conceptual first, it is visceral. Cancer feels the room before it thinks about it. All right, so we're going to get into Effie Hero and the moon, emotional safety, attachment, gravity, and relational regulation. Cancer's primary operating system. I got to turn this song. I don't feel like listening to country right now. I listen to music when I do these. All right. I feel a little bit more gangster music is I do love Cancer. I don't really know too many Cancers. It's a hit and miss for me with Cancer. Probably because of family reasons, but, yeah, it's, alright, so anyways, I'm gonna keep it more educational here. Effie Hero and Moon, emotional safety, attachment, gravity, and relational regulation. Cancer's primary operating system is extroverted feeling, guided by the moon. FE tracks the emotional field outwardly. So they are constantly aware of their emotional environment. They care more about other people's emotions than their own. If you ask a Cancer how they are feeling, they're going to change the subject. Like they are not tracking that at all. At all. All right, so they're tracking the emotional field outwardly. Who is distressed? Who is withdrawn? Who is masking pain? While the moon governs instinctual needs, emotional memory, and cyclical regulation. Together, they create an archetype who first question is not what is true, but who feels unsafe right now. When healthy, Effie Moon creates secure attachment. Cancer notices subtle emotional shifts early and responds before distress escalates. It provides consistency, reassurance, and a sense of emotional home. In leadership, this becomes quiet authority. Cancer does not command through force, but through presence. People regulate simply by being near it because they feel seen, held, and emotionally oriented. When shadow, when shadowed, Effie Moon becomes fear driven. Emotional cues are interpreted as emergencies rather than information. The nervous system shifts into hyper protection. Care turns into monitoring. Concern becomes guilt. Emotional safety is pursued at any cost, even if that cost is autonomy. Cancer does not intend to dominate. It panics at the possible loss, abandonment, or harm, and panic compresses choice. And I parent, introverted intuition parent with Jupiter in exaltation, emotional time, ancestral memory, and protective meaning. Cancer's parental cognition operates through NI, amplified by Jupiter. NI tracks meaning across time rather than moments, while Jupiter expands narratives, moral frameworks, and long range significance. Cancer does not just feel what is happening now, it remembers emotionally across generations. This is the keeper of the story function. When healthy, NI Jupiter produces lineage wisdom. Cancer recognizes emotional patterns across families, relationships, and cultures. It understands what wounds repeat, what dynamics destroy trust, and what protections are necessary to prevent future harm. This gives Cancer a prophetic quality. It can sense where emotional neglect or coercion will lead long before consequences arrive. So, when shadowed, NI Jupiter collapses into threat mythology. Past pain becomes destiny. Old wounds are projected forward as inevitabilities. Cancer stops responding to the present and starts defending against ghosts. Many Meaning inflates fear instead of orienting it. Protection becomes rigid because the story says, if I don't control this, it will happen again. SE, extroverted sensing child with Saturn in left field or detriment. Embodied protection, physical presence, and urgent responsibility. Cancer's child function expresses through SE, grounded and constrained by Saturn. SE responds to what is immediately happening in the physical world, while Saturn adds gravity, responsibility, and seriousness. When Cancer senses danger, it does not philosophize, it moves. In health, SE Saturn creates embodied care. Cancer shows up physically. It cooks, shelters, stays awake, and stands guard. intervenes and absorbs discomfort so others don't have to. Its body becomes a boundary, its presence becomes stabilizing. People feel safer because Cancer is there, not because it explains anything. In shadow, SE Saturn becomes reactive defense. Action outruns consent. Boundaries harden too fast. Protection turns into intrusion. Cancer acts from urgency rather than clarity, confusing immediacy with necessity. The instinct to help bypass the question, is this actually wanted? And then we have introverted thinking inferior and Mars in fall. Logic under duress and the collapse into control. Cancer's inferior function is TI, or introverted thinking, activated under stress by Mars. TI governs clean boundaries, internal logic, and objective differentiation. For Cancer, logic is not the default language. So I like to joke. I do have jokes. But I like to say that Cancer, they're like academically very smart. They're really good at testing in school, but the common sense is lacking. Like real world on the ground common sense is lacking. That's TI inferior. Straight A student lacking some common sense is I have to giggle, especially when emotional safety feels threatened. When Mars activates TI, it often does so under pressure. In healthy development, lived experience teaches Cancer where emotional responsibility ends and control begins. Oops, sorry. Let's see, where was I? Oops, gosh, I keep mupping it. There we are. Boundaries become clear through consequence rather than theory. Cancer learns that protection must include respect for autonomy and that love cannot replace agency. In shadow, fear overrides logic. Emotional certainty becomes moral absolutism. If Cancer feels something is dangerous, it treats that feeling as fact. Control is justified for their own good. This is not cruelty, it is panic without containment. TI collapses instead of calibrating, and Mars supplies force without discernment. So, how these four work together. FE Moon continuously senses vulnerability and emotional threat. NI Jupiter builds protective meaning across time, linking past pain to future risk. SE Saturn moves immediately to shelter, defend, and contain. TI struggles to regulate fear with clean logic under stress. Together, these functions create an archetype designed to hold the hearth, to protect emotional continuity so life can continue safely. Cancer exists to ensure that people have somewhere to belong, somewhere to land, somewhere they are not emotionally abandoned. But when fear becomes identity, Cancer collapses inward. Care becomes confinement. Protection becomes possession. Belonging becomes obligation. So I certainly expanded this portion a lot. Let me see if I need to elaborate more. Okay, I think I hammered that down pretty well. I am going to include all of this in my book. So I am gathering all of these personalities in a book, and I will upload that online. So that expands out even further. And if you're interested, you can certainly check out the book on my website. But I am already at 30 minutes. So integrated role, the payoff. Integrated Cancer protects without imprisoning. It shelters without suffocating. It creates safety without erasing autonomy. At its highest expression, Cancer becomes the guardian who understands the difference between care and control. This is leadership without domination, authority without fear, protection without debt. Integrated Cancer provides refuge while still honoring choice. Its presence says, you belong here and you are free to leave. Or more simply, Cancer holds the hearth. Alright, so a little bit of humor. Cancer doesn't hold grudges, they archive feelings with timestamps. Alright, so, um, yeah, alright, so that's all I have on Cancer or the ENFJ. So, hopefully you enjoyed this video and learned a gem or two. Feel free to comment your thoughts and feelings below, and like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Take care of yourself, like, believe me, I understand the people pleasing, I understand turning the other cheek, I understand caring about other people's feelings. I see how hard you guys work. You are amazing people. I mean, I don't know anyone else that is more caring than Cancer, to be honest. Pisces would be up there, but like the true deep caring on an emotional soul level, there's no one else that tops Cancer. Just take care of yourself. Protect your own self. Love yourself first. I've seen it. I've seen that not happen, and it breaks my absolute heart. Love y'all. See you in the next video.